especially SWAC being the flavor of the month the last couple of years, counting. Because I always would say, man, Dwayne and I, we're not like this, obviously, but we go back and forth with like why the SWAC is the way the position is right now. How can they properly, I don't want to say monetize because they're already getting paid, like technically, but still, how they make the most of it. So, for example, I always would say, I always liken it to some of the Power Five, not to compare it to the Power Five, just from based on principle. To me, if you're a conference and if you got the most brands or the branding, that's going to make you very profitable. Like the SEC, you in SEC country. So the SEC, for example, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, brands, and probably a little bit more. And then you're going to add Oklahoma and Texas in a couple of years. Brands galore. People want to see those brands. People know about those brands, right? Even a lay fan. So you juxtapose that with the SWAC, Grambling, Southern. I mean, you know this. You're a Louisiana guy. Grambling, Southern, Jackson State, FAMU. Some people would say Alco State's a brand. I mean, they got the brands. They got the brands not only HBCU athletics, but pretty much of FCS, if you want to be honest about it. So my thing is, we go back and forth of like, okay, when you say they should get an HBCU sports channel through ESPN. That was like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, right, Dwayne? I used to say stupid stuff like that. So and they don't know we're streaming everything, but you in the television industry, Mo. So just educate me, man, because I'm really leaning on both you and Dwayne. So if you were to advise the SWAC commission how they could monetize this, where it be like a linear cable network through either ESPN, Fox Sports, whoever, or is it be like a streaming device like HBCU Go? Where would their best avenue of the most cash they could get?
So believe it or not, because the SWAC is still an FCS level conference right now, streaming is the best option.
Okay.
With an opportunity to go to linear. And the reason why I say that is that really through the years, production costs for linear have become sky high.
Yes. Oh, most definitely.
You know, I can talk about that from a local standpoint. Like for instance, you know, working in news or whatever, you may see one of us live somewhere or whatever, you know, via either satellite or through our backpack stuff or whatever that we have there. One thing we've been told is, hey, we've got a certain time window to literally have that stuff up, because for as long as that broadcast is up, it costs money. You know, so let's say I'm going live from a game that I'm about to preview or whatever, and my whatchamacallit is at 6:25. They may not want us to turn that thing on until like 6:15, because as soon as 6:15 go, it's like the clock runs or whatever and stuff. And because of that, you know, money starts to cost in that scenario. So think about how it is for games and think about how it is for other programs. Like these things cost. Now, granted, because you have big time sponsorships that we'll talk about in just a little bit or whatever, they kind of offset those costs. But because of that, that's why, you know, digital is becoming more prominent in certain situations. Don't get me wrong, linear still rules everything when it comes to the top dollar, but you also have to kind of understand and also know your worth on scenarios. And actually, I think right now with HBCU Go, with the connection between Dr. Charles McClellan, the commissioner, Byron Allens, and Mr. Simons from HBCU Go, what they have right now, I think, is a perfect scenario for something that's going to be able to be built upon moving forward. And when I say that is this, obviously, you know, they came out with what, an 11-12 game schedule or whatever this year. Plus then Byron Allen did his thing with the syndication packages to where you had so many different markets that were showing the whatever game on television. Plus the Griot TV, which used to be Black News Channel, also showing that as well. That is literally the same thing that the SEC did in the 1980s and 90s with Jefferson Pilot Sports. If anybody knows about Jefferson Pilot Jefferson Pilot was the thing that really put the SEC for football on the map during
Right.
those times or whatever.
Right.
And if you
Right.
act like you've never heard Jefferson Pilot, I'll just go ahead and just say this. Go to YouTube, pull up the Bluegrass Miracle, the game where LSU, when Nick Saban was a coach, Marcus Randall threw the long touchdown pass to beat Kentucky. That was on Jefferson Pilot. And it wasn't until I got in high school that I realized Jefferson Pilot wasn't even a national brand. It was a regional brand, but everybody
Right.
was buying into syndicated packages. And because of that, that's how the SEC brand definitely was built up to where now where they have things in general or whatever with ESPN and we're really ESPN because the CBS thing
ESPN.
ends after this year or whatever.
Right.
Now,
Right.
I'll also will say this: that brand with HBCU Go is going to help Dr. McClellan with his negotiations when the ESPN contract that was previously done by Dewar Sharp, and we're just going to say his name and just leave it alone or whatever.
Wow.
So when it was previously done by whatever, like it was a pretty much a stranglehold for the conference as far as what they could get and all that. So when the McClellan can redo this in about a year or two, that HBCU Go package, that's going to be like his ace in the hole. Was it like, well, look, I've got this going on or whatever. You see what we're doing. How much help can we get to make it look better in our scenarios? And I can't wait to see how that goes on. Now, as far as a whole SWAC channel, I would love to see it personally, but there's a lot that goes into that.
Sure.
I know people will say, oh, the SEC has theirs, the ACC has theirs, Pac-12 has theirs or whatever and stuff.
Yeah.
But those things
so
took
different.
a long time to get right and get ready. And no offense, but I just don't think the SWAC is in that position now. And the reason why I say that, you got to think it's not just football and basketball and baseball. Like SEC Network shows every single sport. So that means you got to either have your money right for production companies or these schools have to have their money right for production things. And then we got to remember, sports season ends roughly May. So what are you showing in June and July and early August? What are you showing when you're not having live sports as well? So there's a lot of things you have to work it as far as component wise to make those things happen. Could we have a full SWAC TV network in the future? Absolutely. Would I say we're going to have it tomorrow or next year or probably in 2 years? Probably not, just because there's just more work that needs to be done. And quite frankly, I feel that right now is just not the time, especially when you don't have the support